ideas travel, and that particular action was one of our earliest actions of what I think Alan Dearling has termed a hub. It both disseminated Hakim's ideas, and it supported the anti-copyright movement, and it allowed people to move, you know, to create on their own for themselves, using the ideas that we had engineered and produced but no longer held. It was an addition to the commons, and an intentional addition to the commons. Now, as I understand Alan's term, a hub acts as a common platform to coordinate loose systems of ideas, activist streams, group minds, individuals and spaces in a communal effort. In that sense, through the programs that we've been enjoying here in the Liminal Village, I think that this Liminal Village, this boom event, is really an extraordinary manifestation of the hub, and it's also it's almost a university for the counterculture, and it's been really amazing to be following it and part of it. Now, Alan's commitment to cultural change has been very long-lived. He was actively involved in the underground press during the 60s. International Times is one of the publications that he was associated with. And since then, he's authored over 40 books involving collaborations with more than 1,000 other creators, writers, artists, and photographers, among many others. And his books many of his books have featured the lives of festival goers, organizers, nomads, and some of Europe's and Australia's most interesting protest, activist, and celebratory cultures. So, Alan Dearling.
Holo Boomers, and thank you very much to the Boom organisers for inviting me here today. I was at the Symposium last year that some of you have been hearing about, and what I'm going to do is talk a wee bit about the old festivals and how they link to the new, the intentional communities that are out there and how they link to Boom. And I'm going to tell a little bit of that through some of the stories that are in one of my books. As you can see, I'm an old hippie now, and back in the day, there's a picture of me as a young hippie, and what I was involved with was the community arts. I was involved in the music scene, and I helped put some of the very, very first festivals on in the UK. The first one was called Harmony Farm, that was meant to be free. Back in that day, you had other festivals, that, like Isle of Wight, there were 3 of them, that were not meant to be free, but the fences came down. There were festivals outside festivals, and the people decided, in many ways, just through action, that they would go out there and do it. I think you've got my photo. Oh, you had the picture up. We'll get there, technology. No. Sorry about this. Later on, I'm also going to show a film from last year's Symposium. So there's a link that's very physical. You can see what was done, some of the people at last year's Symposium. It was a free cultural spaces symposium, and it brought together, hey, there we are. Thank you. Thank you, Filippo. Give him a cheer, come on. We all need techies. So there I was. That's when I was 17. Idealist then, still an idealist now. I believe we should share our passions. The festivals then, we had longer hair perhaps, but we still danced. We still had bands that we loved. Windsor Free Festival was one of the first in the UK. It came after some really big commercial ones, but it was the first free festival. And it was organised particularly by a guy called Phil Russell. He's better known to the public as Wally Hope. The people then were tribes, and one of my themes is that we are many tribes, whether we live in a permaculture environment, whether we live in an intentional community, whether we go to festivals, whether we travel, but we're one people. And what Aya and Jordan have been talking about is that link, that we need to be linked more closely together. That photograph there is features a guy called Nick, who's in Hawkwind and Space Ritual. Okay, Wally Hope, an idealist, a weirdo. He called himself the son of man, and he was a right pain in the arse to the authorities because he believed in putting on free festivals. In particular, he put on Windsor. He then put on Stonehenge. There's Wally, smiling with the policeman. The police didn't like Wally most of the time. He wrote a letter to the farmer who owns the land round Stonehenge, inviting him to allow the people to put on a festival round those sacred stones. He also wrote a letter to our Queen in the UK. Dear Ma'am, the people have the right to have a party. They have a right to have a festival. We invite you to a festival in your garden. So there's a more recent picture of Stonehenge when it's open, when it doesn't have the fences round it. Too much of the time, the stones that were given to the people of Britain are fenced off. That's why we're some of the people who break down those fences. We're some of the people who have ideas. We have those enthusiasms, our imaginations, and we share them. Sadly, Wally Hope was such a pain in the arse, such a thorn in the side of the authorities, that they kept on arresting him, often for very, very small amounts of drugs. He had, I think, 1 tab of acid with him, and it was 1975. They arrested him and decided he was schizophrenic. And being schizophrenic, he needed to be filled with more drugs. So they filled him with Largactil. And he died 3 weeks later of an overdose. His ashes were put into what you can see there, the Wally box, and taken to Stonehenge the following year. And they were spread that year by Nigel Ayres that you can see. And he spread them out chanting, because Wally was the icon of those first festivals. And he threw them to the wind, and he got a bit of Wally in the eye. Out of the spirit of Windsor and Stonehenge and Fun City and Harmony Farm and some of those early festivals, a traveller culture developed. People who came to Boom and didn't leave, or they did leave and they wanted to live in a vehicle, live differently. They lived in benders, they lived in teepees, they took their homes with them, and they set up festivals as far as possible that were not charging or charging a little, so they had their own economy. In the same way as we're saying, make your own free spaces and take them with you. They lived in all sorts of different houses. That's a bender. They lived in buses that they converted to be their own homes. They lived in traditional wagons like the Romanis. They lived in teepees. They had imagination of how a home should look, and they developed their own economy. But they were also people involved in the squats in the cities around the world. And those people brought new attitudes to the festival scene as well as to other free spaces. And one of the main fighting places, one of those liminal areas, were the American bases that were put up in the United Kingdom by the Americans. Molesworth and Greenham Common were the protest camps, particularly by women, but many, many travellers. And that's a photograph at that time. And the police were charged by the government to try and stop the travellers, to stop the festivals happening. And by 1985, there was a 25-mile exclusion zone round the stones at Stonehenge. So the festival organisers, they didn't organise the festival, they just came. There were no charges, there were no fences. The festival people tried to get to Stonehenge that year, and they got arrested. They got harassed. And the Battle of the Beanfield was a book I produced with many of the people that were there that day. In a way, it was a time of closure for them to produce that book 20 years on. The trials that they had to face for possession of drugs, for all sorts of behaviour the police alleged happened, took 13 years. Over 200 people lost their homes that day, and their homes were trashed by a special patrol group that was set up by the UK government's then Prime Minister Maggie Thatcher. And that's one photograph of one of the women she'd been dragged through the window of her home by the special patrol group. So they were arrested and walked to the nearest police stations. These were police that in the UK that we hadn't seen. They had helmets, they had no numbers. But a lot of the travellers survived. They regrouped. And they really only did want to live on that liminal edge of society. Okay, we're now in the late 80s, coming towards the 90s, and party people, rave culture, has started to happen big time. We've got the doof, the boom. And this actually was very different from the hippies that were part of the original Traveller festivals. They brought attitude. They brought an in-your-face punk attitude, party attitude, and they wanted to have fun, which is one of the messages. We are playful human beings. The parties grew around the world. That indeed is in Portugal, with one of the big sound systems. The big ones from the UK at the time were Bedlam, Spiral Tribe and DIY, to name but three. And they said, make some fucking noise. And that's what you guys are often involved with doing now. It was big parties, it was small parties, but it offended a lot of the authorities. And in our country, they passed an act in 1994 called the Criminal Justice Act, which meant that more than 6 vehicles couldn't travel together, and you couldn't organise or go to a festival or a party where there were repetitive beats. We have parties, we enjoy ourselves, and sometimes we fall over. So today's people, you boomers, you're offered the choice today to join with other party people, other people trying to set up intentional communities, other people who want to do organic farming, live differently. Our message today is make a free cultural space for yourselves. Thank you for listening. The hubs that you represent and some of the people that were there last year represent should be linked more seriously. We don't have to live together, but we are that one people, and I think that's really important. Going back to that theme, the traveller community that I was part of often like to quote the old Hopi Indian prophecy of when the earth has been ravaged and the animals are dying, a tribe of people from all races and creeds shall put their faith in deeds and not words. They shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow, protectors of the environment. You today are some of those warriors of the rainbow. Thank you for coming, and we'll have a chance for a few questions and answers.
Hello, good afternoon. First I want to say I live in Amsterdam. I come to Rachor sometime, enjoy it very much. To Soltis, to Trans-Orient Express, you're doing a great job. Thank you for that. I have a question about, there is a lot of people from other countries that try to create a festival similar to Boom or to Soltis, and they're having a problem with the law, because the law think about this festival that it's a one big drug community. And I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion about it, and how simple people like us can change this thing for the future? Because there is many stuff that trying to get up and they are fall in the middle, because the police is not insuring and the government is not insuring it, and this is what I want to ask you. What do you think can be changed about it?
Thank you. It's a question I guess many of the people in this tent today have faced. there isn't one answer for any one country, let alone for all the countries that you represent. In my country, we've had to accept that when we're putting a festival on, unless we want to risk losing all our gear, all of our sound equipment, all of our stages, that we probably have to build those bridges between the islands that Chiara was talking with last year, and that means working often within the laws of our countries. So what we've ended up doing is buying police, buying security we don't want, putting on some areas of health and safety that we don't want, putting even more serious fences around our festivals that we don't want. But at the end of the day, we have a festival, we have a place where we can play and share our ideas of the imagination. And there is no real answer to your question. We just keep on trying. Some people will go out there and they'll put on a party and they'll risk losing their rig. Others of us have perhaps been fighting for so long that we've decided that it's better to put something on this week and put something on next month as well, than risk that loss. But I can't answer for your country. But thank you for the question. It's a good one that we all have to face.
I'm Tatiana. I'm from Russia and from community in Russia. And I want to ask one more doubting question to you. I understand that you think that festivals which are happening now is a followers for the Nomad and for festival which was in 16th. Is it that I understand right?
I didn't quite understand that, Tatiana, sorry.
The festivals is now
Yes.
is followers from the 60s festival.
No, no, everybody is doing their own thing. There's no following. I'm just trying to say that we are that one people that made festivals back then. People are making festivals and parties now. Some of them are doing it totally illegally. But the festivals isn't the only key today. We're trying to talk about free cultural spaces, of which you live in one. And
I mean, they follow the same idea.
no, I think they have many ideas, and we don't try to force people to have the same idea at all. We like to have parties. We like to enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the people in 60s, they was kind of in a, like you shown us, it was a spiritual quest for them.
No, we had drugs and we partied.
Okay, I get lost.
Okay, I think in terms of Boom, I'd let other people answer, but we have the healing area here and we have the sacred fire areas that are halfway towards the hippie festivals that I was originally part of. But hey, Boom may become a permanent space and then they can do lots of different things at different points in the year. It doesn't have to be just trance dance.
Hello.
Hi.
How do you translate?
Could you just say who you are and where you're from? Just makes it nice for everybody in the tent.
Hi everyone. I am Samina Bukhari and I'm from Manchester. How do you translate the festival life to your normal life when you go back home? And do you find that from your friends and family you have discrimination for your life choices of being free and happy?
I don't think any of us are totally free. I don't think any of us wear one hat all the time. I'm wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt here today and a kilt because I come and live from Scotland. But we make our festivals and we make what we do next. For me, I have worn a number of hats over life. Some is organising festivals. I've written these 40 books and I've written them in a different way than most authors. I've written them with people. I'm not a historian or researcher, although I have some qualifications. I've written them with people and allowed them to tell their own stories. And in a way, festivals, also your story, your story, your story of today's festival of Boom is different from the person sitting somewhere else in this room. And we make our free spaces, we make our festivals. And when we go home, we choose perhaps to bring a little bit of the festival back into the rest of our life. And maybe some people, as we're here later today, go to a festival and never go away home. They stay here. Thank you very, very much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed.